Our meeting to order and invite you to stand and join with me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is your reminder to please silence your cell phone during our meeting. Mrs. Kendi, could we have the roll call, please?
Certainly. Mr. Desai. Here. Mrs. Freiberg. Here. Dr. Hessen. Here. Mr. Robinson. Here. Mr. Sanders. Mrs. San Martin. Here. Mrs. Schrader. Here. Dr. Sullivan.
Here.
Mrs. Turner. Here. Madam President, there are 8 members present this evening.
Thank you. This brings us to 4.0, opportunity for public comment on agenda items listed in red. This public comment period is an opportunity to be heard by the board on agenda items only. Comments are to be directed to the entire board, not one individual board member, administrator, staff member, or to the audience. Comments will be timed and limited to 3 minutes or less. Please note, board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting. When you hear your name called, please come forward. You do not need to state your name or address before sharing your remarks. Michael Park, Spring-Goodsbury Township. Good evening, sir.
Hello, everybody. I'm here tonight about agenda item 10.1, proceeding with the Act 34 booklet. As some of you may or may not be aware, there's pending litigation. The litigation doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you can go to school, whether or not how many parking spaces you need. The litigation is the fact that the neighbors have, the school district and board of supervisors has entered an agreement that violated due process rights of the neighbors and their future rights with the building. So by moving forward with your Act 34 hearing before that litigation is settled, you're running the risk of adding more costs to the project. So that's all I wanted to say, make sure everybody's aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to student board representative report. Good evening, Nicole.
Good evening. So the technology and engineering,
Education Association of Pennsylvania announced this past May 6th the 2024-2025 TEEAP Student Honors Award recipients. Congratulations to Spencer Burns and Aaron West for being the recipients for these awards. Also, this past May 7th, 5th grade students at Indian Brook Elementary hosted a popcorn and poetry event for their families. Thanks to all the guests, staff, and families who made the event special for all. The most exciting event for our high school physics students arrives May 20th, the annual physics boat races. The students hang boats out of cardboard and tape and try to make it to the other side of the water. So a special thanks to the Dallas Sound Area School District for facilitating their pool for us. Also, congratulations to the more than 100 8th graders for receiving recognition based on their academics and athletics achievements this past May 20th. Hope their future keeps looking as bright as it is now. On May 22nd, the class of 2025 commencements happened. This event was full of tears of sadness and joy, but also great insight from our speakers, including co-valedictorians Dylan Dane and Sophia Scarlett, Student Council Vice Presidents Clarence Cashauer, Class President Paige Gerner, and Class Vice President Logan Saunders, plus our amazing school board members and school staff. Thanks to all for making this event special for all of our graduates. Congratulations also to Alexia Porcanto, a junior at the high school, for earning a Carson Scholar Award. What a great showcase of dedication and school spirit. Also, please let's take a moment to recognize Mamori Kebe, an exchange student from the Rotary Club of York who came from Japan. And thanks for joining the York student family and graduating with our 2025 class. He was greatly involved with sports within the school district and surely will be missed by all of us. Finally, thanks to Ana Farah, a junior at the high school, for representing us at the York Distinguished Young Woman this past May 18. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. Any questions, anything for Nicole?
Can I just say how wonderful that was?
You may, you just did. Thank you.
Will this be the last?
Nicole has one more meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, one more meeting. Thank you.
But she does have a few finals tomorrow, so we're gonna let her sneak out. As possible.
Yeah. Good luck on those, kiddo.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the board president's report, 6.1. We get to recognize our former student board representative, Sophia Scalette, who was also co-valedictorian for the class of 2025. She done graduated last Thursday. I have a little statement to read, and then we're going to invite Sophia to come up to the microphone and share some of her thoughts. Sophia Scalette, co-valedictorian of York Suburban High School's class of 2025 and 23-24 student board representative, had an exciting decision to make after she earned acceptance to 6 Ivy League universities. Sophia was accepted to Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, and Princeton, and was waitlisted at Dartmouth and Yale, in addition to securing acceptances from Georgetown and Swarthmore. It's like those two schools are no peanuts, if you know what I'm saying. With Ivy League acceptance rates ranging from 3.4% to 7%, her achievement is truly extraordinary. She now joins a distinguished group of York Suburban alums who have earned a place in these prestigious institutions. Sophia is excited to study comparative literature and ultimately decided to attend Harvard University in the fall. And in her graduation speech last week, shared her hope to travel the world as well. Sophia, we're incredibly proud of you. You not only exemplify our portrait of a graduate competencies, but you're an example of what can be accomplished when a student takes advantage of all that their time at York Suburban has to offer. We can't wait to see what your bold future holds. So on behalf of the board, congratulations and best wishes. So would you like to come forward and share some thoughts? Hi, welcome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Those were such lovely words. And I'm just so excited to be in this position. I would like to say that for each of those schools that I applied to, one of the essays that I wrote was about my time on the board and how wonderful of an experience and how much I learned from that situation. So that was just great to be able to share with everyone. And clearly they thought so too, so that's exciting. But thank you so much for taking this time. I really valued when I was on the board. I learned a lot from that, and I learned a lot from Suburban, and I hope to take that with me. I talked a lot in my speech about the special Suburban community, and I really do feel that in my heart that that's a true special part of York Suburban, and so I really hope to be able to find that when I go to Harvard next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, as I said the other night at commencement, we can't wait to watch you go make your mark on the world. So we look forward to hearing all about your adventures up in Beantown, and hope you'll come back for a visit sometime. It's my responsibility to report that the board met in executive session on May 27th, 2025. That's tonight at 6:15 for the purpose of discussing legal matters. Specifically, we were advised regarding item number 10.2 at our executive session. No official action was taken during this session. At our last meeting, we discussed the appointment of Mr. Desai as board treasurer for the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. At this time, are there any other nominations for the position of board treasurer?
I make a motion to accept his services.
Okay. Hearing no other nominations, we've got a motion. We have a second to approve the reappointment of Mr. Desai as board treasurer for this term. That's July 1, 25 through June 30, 2026. Are there any votes to the contrary? Hearing none, it can be considered unanimous, and we thank you, Mr. Desai, for agreeing to serve in this capacity. At our last meeting, we also discussed the opportunity to appoint up to 2 board directors to serve as York Suburban School District's voting delegates for the 2025 PSBA Delegate Assembly that's scheduled for Tuesday, October 21. At that time, Mrs. Fryrick graciously volunteered to serve as a delegate. Are there any other board directors interested in serving as a voting delegate? Okay, hearing none, I ask that a motion be made to designate Mrs. Fryrick as York Suburban's voting delegate for the 2025 PSBA Delegate Assembly.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any votes to the contrary? That can be also considered a unanimous vote. The Board of School Directors designates Mrs. Fryrick to serve as York Suburban School District's voting delegate for the 2025 PSBA Delegate Assembly on Tuesday, October 21. Thank you for agreeing to serve. That takes us to 7.0, the treasurer's report. Previously mentioned Mr. Desai, you're on.
Thank you, Madam President. For tonight's treasurer's report, our year-to-date general fund revenues at $64 million against the budget of $72.1, and our general funds expenditures at $55.2 million against the budget of $73.4 million. Same as previous years, our revenues are, or previous months, our revenues are greater by $8.8 million, generating an interest income of $98,135 for the month of April. For the remainder of the report, I have a consent agenda. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion, questions? Are there votes to the contrary? Hearing none, this can be considered unanimous.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Administrative report and discussion items. Dr. Krauser?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. As you heard from Nicole, May is a very busy month, as we all know, in schools. So highlighting all the things that are happening inside of each of our buildings is very difficult. We continue to encourage you to follow our social media accounts to see those experiences happening. Find a student, ask a question. You'll certainly hear about all those great things. Even tonight, we have a district playoff game happening right next door in the gymnasium. So lots of great things that are happening, even though we've already finished graduation. Tonight, I want to highlight in particular our class of 2025. We were fortunate enough to celebrate and recognize Sophia this evening, one member of that class, filled with exceptional talent and lots of celebrations. So I want to take a moment tonight, kind of unpack our graduating class and just exemplify the hard work and effort over 13 years of commitment and time and energy that these young adults have put in, celebrating our academics, celebrating our extracurriculars, celebrating the involvement that these students do both for our community as well as the school as a whole. So a little bit in generalities about the class. Just the other night we celebrated 223 graduates. You can see from the presentation outlining a little bit of how that excellence in education and academics really prevailed with this graduating class, with 14 students earning that distinction of 4.0 or greater, and then you can see kind of moving down, recognizing those individuals. So lots to celebrate with that particular group and their hard work and effort. In addition, the class of 2025 had 5 National Merit Scholarship finalists, quite an accomplishment, scholars, quite an accomplishment from that class of students to be recognized at that national level. So as you heard last 2 weeks ago in May, Dr. Ellis was back in to provide a review of the work that we've been doing with our York Suburban Senior High School 2030 plan, which is the strategic work that we've been doing at the high school that Dr. Ellis has been leading to really kind of bring those portrait of graduacy competencies to life as we emphasize the pathways that our students are taking throughout their elective opportunities as well as their core academics. So a little bit about the post-secondary plans that we're seeing from these students, just kind of a breakdown of where we're going from this class of 2025. Out of the students that have responded to the survey, you see we had a few students that didn't respond to that exit survey yet. We're just kind of clear on what that decision was going to look like. 100 of those students are off to a 4-year college or university, 16 to 2-year colleges or community colleges, 17 to trade or business schools, 22 into the workforce, 9 who've made that sacrifice to join our service in the military enlistment, and then 21 that are choosing that gap year before schooling, and that ranges anywhere from general workforce or other ideas to kind of broaden their horizons and context. So again, very diverse pathways, but all those students have decisions. Let's talk a little bit about where those career clusters are taking those students. So if you look on the next slide, you'll see that the class of 2025 is broken down by their career plans. And I won't read it verbatim, but you can see that we've got healthcare and human services is that leading pathway for students. And that ranges anywhere from nursing to medical fields, emergency medical technicians, broad kind of career clusters. Glad to see we have that education growth still happening with our students heading off to colleges and universities to pursue degrees in education, and then kind of moving down. Won't read them verbatim, but you can see then it continues on to the next slide with our second group of career clusters in financial services, all the way down to those students that are entering digital technology, energy and natural resources, and marketing and sales. So That was in the survey that Dr. Ellison prepared with students, kind of gives an idea of where those clusters are going, breaks down a lot of times where their career or their college or university kind of outlines where that degree or college major field would go. So as we broke down that survey a little bit more closely, the future plans of those students that were attending college or technical schools kind of broke down those top choices. The leading one was York College of Pennsylvania, right here, our neighbors and great partners with the district as they continue to grow. And you can kind of continue to move down that list, Harrisburg Area Community College, Temple, Westchester, University of Pittsburgh. Again, just a sampling of them. The next slide, you'll see that it is diverse. We had 57 different schools across the country. With a little bit of a highlight there, you can see in Pennsylvania getting the most growth, but we have students that are traveling all across the United States where they're heading for their next steps. It's really an exciting opportunity. These students have put in a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy over 13 years, and it shows. We hear it and see it from the teachers. We hear it and see it from the students. Gives me an opportunity to once again thank the board and their work to help these students meet these goals that they've set themselves. And as Madam President mentioned, that bold future these students do as they lead through. So we're eager to see the great changes that they bring, the future that they craft, and the hard work transform into the world beyond York Suburban High School. So congratulations to the class. There's a quick snippet of best wishes that you saw some outstanding artistic talent in our students as they decorated their caps this year, and that's just a small sampling. If you had a chance to check out social media, you see lots of great caps and excitement from our students. They did a fantastic job despite the rain. I believe it was when Madam President's speech was going on, the skies lit up and it came down. Although a difficult decision to stay inside, we chose the right decision because it was absolutely pouring outside. So, but I think at least the students that I was talking to at the end, they were happy to get their diplomas and walk out. So, as always, you can see the upcoming meetings. During the months of June and July, we've combined meetings, the 2 dates, and as always, ending with our mission and vision as we head forward. And lastly, included in your report this evening is enrollment report. Any questions for me? So again, congratulations to the class of 2025. Congratulations to all the students, K to 11, who are wrapping up as well. And thank you to the Board of Directors for your support and encouragement for our students and the work they've done to be successful this year.
Thank you, Dr. Krauser. Dr. Lorfink, you have a report this evening.
Thank you. My information seems not nearly as inspiring as Dr. Krauser's report on our excellent graduates. Congratulations to all of our graduates this year. So I'm coming to the board tonight to recommend some changes to the Code of Conduct, give you a little bit of overview of where we've been, kind of how we got here today. Oh, I lost the internet. So just to give you a little bit of background, you all, the board does have a paper copy of the code. A digital copy will be shared with the minutes of the meetings for the public to take a look at. It is lengthy, and there's a lot of information. The current Code of Conduct is also lengthy, but it is there for your review. Just some background on the Code of Conduct. It is attached to Policy 218, which is our student discipline policy. So the Code of Conduct in and of itself is not a policy, it is just an attachment to a policy. It was last revised and accepted by the board in July of 2022, so it was right about when I arrived here at York Suburban. The new code was being put in place for that school year. And at the same time, there were some kind of conversations going on. As you know, the district has really been undergoing some changes, updates in systems, most importantly, some of the mental health work, some of the trauma-informed practices we've been working with, restorative practices, as well as our positive behavior interventions and supports for PBIS. So we've had some just changes in language and approaches to students, and really looking at what is effective in shaping and changing behaviors in students, not just discipline and just like the old school disciplinary model. So with that in mind, we decided to come before the board with some recommendations to the Code of Conduct. Attorney Say has done some nice presentations for us along the lines as well, so we've taken a lot of that advice and encouragement and kind of that background from her as well. Looked at some policies. The other things that we've had is a dress code pilot going on for the last 2 years. So we wanted to update the Code of Conduct to represent that updated dress code as well. So I have some information for you tonight. You have the code in front of you, and we're hoping to get approval from the board at the next meeting, which will be in June. And at that point, we will be able to revise our handbooks and all of those things, make sure that families have that communication as well. So structurally, the code has been changed quite a bit. The order has been changed, and some of the organization of the code has been changed, which is why you don't have a redlined document, because it would have been very confusing to redline document this. But a lot of the previous code is still there. It's just repackaged and organized in a little bit of a different format. So that organization of flow has really changed. As I mentioned, we aligned this with our PBIS language, and the main change with the restructuring is that we did have 4 levels of behaviors before identified in our code. We've adjusted that to 3 levels. It's the same behaviors, it's the same kind of consequences, slightly tweaked with some additional information, but just reorganized to match that PBIS language. PBIS uses 3 levels of behavior classification. They use minors, which are kind of those little things that can be corrected pretty easily. And then the majors are handled into serious and severe. So you have kind of that serious conduct, or those things that are more policy violations, such as, say, a weapons charge or drugs and alcohol, things like that in that level 3. So it's just a restructuring of the overall document. We also added some additional sections. There's always been a policy or a section in the Code of Conduct, or in the current Code of Conduct, on bullying and cyberbullying, but there were some big sections that were just missing that should be addressed in the code. One is harassment, which is our policy 103. So this is all sorts of harassment, including sexual harassment, verbal harassment, all of those different types of harassment and discrimination possible in policy 103. We also have a hazing policy, policy 247, which was not mentioned whatsoever in the Code of Conduct. So we wanted to make sure that that was addressed in there, as well as discriminatory language. So this would be language against any protected class, whether it is gender, whether it's an ethnic group, a racial group, and that language, regardless of if the student is part of that protected class or not, just making sure that it is clear that that kind of language is not acceptable here at York Suburban School District. So we added sections to address those 3 sections that were just missing completely. We also added a section that's very clear on how to report violations. So if there is something that somebody, whether it's a student, a community member, a family member, would like to report, that there are a couple of different ways to report these policy violations if they would like to report them. So some information a little bit more than just, tell your teacher, tell the principal. It's a little bit more clear. And that includes safe to say something, which is the anonymous tip line or tip section. There's a phone call, there's an email, there's also different ways to do it. There's an app. Typically, a lot of these do come through Safe to Say. There's also a report form that is attached to policy 103. And then, of course, we still have that language of you can still report that to a teacher, a principal, any staff member here at school. The last thing that was a big update in this Code of Conduct is an update to academic integrity, and with specifically some addition of artificial intelligence language. The high school team has really taken the lead. They have developed, taking some different rubrics that have been floating around from different colleges, different universities, and they've created their own rubric to help teachers and students communicate when and where AI should be used in assignments. And the high school team has really taken the lead on that. We did not want to actually put that rubric in the code, though, because AI is going to be changing so quickly. We didn't want to have to come back to the board every time we need to tweak that and make sure that we re-communicate that out to our students and families. But we did feel that not mentioning artificial intelligence in our Code of Conduct was going to be an issue in the next couple of years. So we added artificial intelligence within the academic integrity section. So that's the overall code. Those are the major changes that you will see in the code. The code still allows for a lot of flexibility to allow our administrators to choose appropriate consequences and ways to deal with behavior that's in an appropriate way for each student, regardless of grade, disability, all of those different things that we take into account. The other piece of this that is more of a larger change is the dress code. So just a little history. So there was a dress code committee actually before I got here. We had some committee work that was in 2021 through 2023. I kind of came in at the end, and they created some guiding belief statements. They made some recommendations to change the dress code. The dress code, basically we came up with a pilot dress code. I believe I presented that to the board. It was 2023. We instituted the pilot in the 23-24 school year, very successfully, but we had some staff members who basically said, well, this was just 1 year. We should really give it a little bit more time before we make a major change. So we did. We gave it a second year, and this year has gone just as smoothly as the first year. So we are ready to recommend that our pilot dress code is put into the code and is made our actual dress code without calling it a pilot any longer. The dress code is organized into what students must wear to come to school, what they may wear, and what they may not wear. So it's the same exact pilot dress code that we've had in place for the last 2 years very successfully. And we did do 3 surveys, so I wanted to bring some of the general survey results to you. We did 2 staff surveys to K-12 staff. We asked our paraprofessionals, we asked our teachers, our faculty, our administrators. In the winter of 2023, we had 155 staff responses. And in the spring of 2024, we had 134 staff responses. In both surveys, it didn't change at all. It was about 75%, give or take, maybe 0.5%. That felt that the change was overall positive, or it had little to no impact on how the school was functioning, how their classrooms were functioning. That will tell you that there's 25% of our staff that wasn't super thrilled about it or just thought that it was negative in general. That was consistent, and a lot of I have some of those comments to share with you tonight, but a lot of the comments were, I want to say, they weren't very specific. They were more, I'm concerned that something could happen, or a student might take advantage of this. Or there might be a safety concern with a student that comes in the door in the morning with a hood up, things like that. So it was a lot of speculation of what could possibly happen rather than concerns of what has happened. So while that speculative concern is obviously important and perceptions are important of our faculty, there was very little as to what negative impacts the dress code had actually had in the buildings. Our administrators and our school data reported that we had a significant decrease in disciplinary referrals due to dress code, which you would expect to see. We also had a significant decrease in escalated behaviors that started with dress code. And this was really the #1 reason that the administration wanted to see a change in dress code. Because sometimes what starts off as a minor dress code violation with a student who's just having a bad morning escalated very quickly and would turn to a much larger issue with that particular student, and it would affect a lot more, it would affect our instructional time, and it would affect other students around them. So by changing the dress code and eliminating that problem for most kids, it really significantly changed those escalated behaviors that simply started with, hey kid, take your hood off your head, and that was most of them. And it also overall increased that instructional time because students were in their classroom. No longer did we have girls coming down and waiting for something a little bit longer, for them to wear because their shorts were too short. We didn't have those kinds of battles. Kids are in class, they're learning, and teachers are not taking their time out to deal with dress code violations any longer in general. So I have some staff voices here. I'm going to read these because I want to make sure everybody gets to hear these. So these were 2 quotes from our staff. Students have been in less uncomfortable situations with staff. Enforcement is no longer an issue with perception of targeting inequity. Students no longer start off their day with immediately being reprimanded and asked to change. Students have been able to dress as they feel comfortable. There is less stress and conflicts between teachers and students as teachers at varying degrees try to enforce an arbitrary and subjective dress code. So I thought that was pretty powerful. There's more consistency in the dress code, and students aren't being penalized unfairly, especially girls, and the especially girls part was not added by me, that was added by the staff member. And less instructional time enforcing rules. The majority of students are still dressing appropriately. I believe it does give more freedom and encourages more body positive messages. Kids can be comfortable in school. Now, like I said, not all staff comments were positive all the way. So these were kind of the themes of the more, I'll say, the negative or the staff that weren't super thrilled about the changes. As educators, we are responsible for preparing and growing the whole child. One aspect of that is presentation, as it matters. Dress for the job you want. And I absolutely agree with that statement. I think we all will. But I think this means that our faculty have a responsibility to make sure that we're having those conversations. In that career cluster conversation we're having in a high school, we're doing interview prep with students through, say, the JA program, and we have the mock interviews come down. We should certainly be making sure that students understand what that means. Dress what you want, make sure they have clothing that they can wear out to a job interview. The second concern revolved around hoods. That was kind of a theme. Students will use their hoods to hide earbuds. Students will disengage by putting their hoods up and heads down. these behaviors occur together. Totally valid. However, we have been pretty clear with our teachers, and I will continue to make sure our principals are clear with our teachers, that they have every right to tell a disengaged student who just has their head down with a hood up that they need to take their head down and be engaged in class. What we're trying to stop is the kid that's just doing their work and is doing exactly what they should be in class, but just happens to have a hood up on their head, and starting that conflict. So this is still something that our staff, certainly, like earbuds are certainly not appropriate in all situations. So there are still ways to address that without having an arbitrary dress code that says you just can't have a hood on your head walking down the hallway. And the last one there, I was concerned about how colleagues, and I'm sorry, concerned about colleagues and how they feel about it, but I haven't heard any negative comments. And that was an overall theme as well. A lot of, well, I'm worried that this could happen, or somebody else said they have a concern. But again, just really not specified, specific to anything specific that had happened with the actual dress code changes. We also asked our students how they feel. In the fall of this past year, we had grades 6 through 12. They were allowed to take a voluntary survey. 815 students wanted to share how they feel about the pilot dress code in grades 6 through 12. 52% felt the change was positive. 45% said, oh, it doesn't really matter to me. And 3% of our students felt that the pilot had been negative. And again, this was in year 2, so they had experienced for a full year. And I have some quotes from our students as well. It helps me feel more comfortable in my school. I think the teachers are now more worried about academics than what kids wore. This way, everyone is more focused on school and there are not complications between teachers and students. I like how we can be comfortable. It helps me learn better. And it made me feel like it was fair and I can wear what I want just like the boys can. So you can hear there was a theme from our female students for sure. So at this point, we have a recommendation for board approval of the Code of Conduct in June of 2025. It's coming up. I have a typo there. I apologize. I missed 2. It says opt. This will allow us time to get those updates for the code of the Code of Conduct to get those handbooks over the summer. Any questions?
So, when hearing the word discriminatory, I tend to, through many, mandatory HR briefings and all that sort of stuff at work, you go back to 10 major protected classes. Race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, not particularly absent here, disability, genetic information, not particularly absent here, veteran status, again, not really relevant to our students necessarily, and citizenship. I was a little surprised that at a minimum we're missing sex, national origin, and disability. So maybe we can see that in whatever versions we are looking at moving forward. Discriminatory language, page 23.
Yeah, I see.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I see where that is, and we can make sure that that's adjusted.
Yeah, I believe it might be in the policy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is missing on that line. I can get that, make sure that's happening.
So my comment is referring to what students may wear. It says that they may wear head coverings, including durags, hijabs, beanies, hoods, and hats. But then in what students may not wear, it says head coverings, and of course ski mask and other headgear. So I think the head covering needs to be removed because it contradicts the name.
So if you look at that, this is on page 27, you're absolutely right that statement is specific to the engagement in class. So this is the section that allows the teachers to ask the student to take off what they are wearing if it meets certain criteria. So it says head coverings, ski masks, or other headgear that obscure the face or distract from engagement in class. So if they're wearing something that is not covering the face and they're not distracted and they're fully engaged in class, then they can stay in their hood or their head cover. And that's how we've been running the pilot all along, and that seems to have been clear.
So in other words, they can wear it as long as it's not an issue in their engagement. And isn't that the way Isn't that the goal?
Correct, that's the goal, and also that it doesn't obscure their face. I will say that was a concern, and I can appreciate that from a safety perspective. I know one of the adjustments, I know the high school did this year, was that they had the kids as they were entering the building to make sure they showed their face, so that there were no safety concerns. There were some concerns, and I think they're legitimate, of somebody could sneak into the building if they couldn't see who they were.
Anybody else? Anything else related to this, Mr. Desai?
Sure, thanks. So for artificial intelligence, the last sentence, can I get a clarification?
What
Because it says
page?
any use of AI outside of this communication,
What page?
page 28.
Yeah, page 28 in the middle.
Yeah, can be considered a violation of this code.
So I think the outside of this communication would mean the sentence above, that it shall only be allowed to the extent stated and outlined by the teacher for the individual assignment or course. So any use outside of that communication, I could clear that up a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe make that a little bit clearer for families. Mr. Henson?
And AI is very broad, so I'm not sure how much specific we can get into this, because we just put AI, it like literally take out a lot of use cases.
Definitely open to suggestions if you have any.
Sure.
I know this is your area of expertise.
Yeah.
I think we were trying to be specific enough that it was covered, but not so specific that
That's
as
right.
things are changing, because we know that that's going to be happening.
Thank you.
You might consider like language that says the type of AI like authorized by the teacher for that assignment, because to that point,
Sure.
a Google search is AI, a pull-up of a legal research website uses AI, almost everything does.
And it's going to become more and more prolific
Yeah.
as we go, for sure.
When they define the assignment.
Thank you.
It is. You're right, just a Google search, can't get away from it now. Summarizing my text messages.
Anybody else? Thank you for tackling this.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I do want to thank, we had a team, Dr. Jackson, Mrs. Hall, Mr. Laudeman, and Dr. Adams met with me multiple times through the year. Ms. Say and Attorney Dalton also looked at it as well, gave us some really good feedback. So it's been a lot of, I mentioned to Dr. Krauser, I could work on this for another 6 months and still not be done, because I keep wanting to go back and adjust things. So I do appreciate it. And I would say for the board, if you have any feedback, or anybody publicly, because it will be posted publicly, if you have any feedback between now and the June board meeting, I'd love to hear it.
I do like the structure of it.
Thank you. I should also thank Mrs. Foreman for her beautiful cover page that she created for me. Oh, I believe I have some other information for you too. So I had a second, I wanted to give you an update on our summer camps that are coming up this summer for our elementary students. This will be the third summer. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. We are running 12 summer camps this year that are free to our elementary students to attend. They run for 4 days during the summer. 1/4 of our elementary students are coming to one of our summer camps this summer. So we're really excited about that. And the topics include, I wanted to share some of the interesting ones. We have a cooking class, theater, science, CPR, American Sign Language, logic games and board games, just getting the kids off devices and learning how to, look at each other and talk to each other. And storybook adventures. So we have a lot of different activities for students across the, a broad spectrum of academic skills and enrichment skills for our students. We have 6 pre-K camps running as well. So those are for our students coming into kindergarten next year. We have kindergarten teachers who come in, and for a week in June, the idea is really to get those kids that have not had preschool, or that's really our target audience, but we do open it up to all of our kindergartners. We have close to 70 kids coming for that week. So we're really excited to get our students a head start on kindergarten.
And will those be on both sides of the district?
Correct, yes. There's 3 camps at Bellevue and 3 at Yorkshire.
That's awesome.
Correct. Yeah, so we had teachers volunteer from both schools, and we had parents sign up from both schools, so we're running them at both locations.
Hats off to the teachers who will spend their summer time doing that, because that's really important. But obviously they might be doing something else, so hats off to them and thanks to them for doing that.
Thank you, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our action items. Consent agenda items are listed below. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately? Or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, I ask a motion be made to approve the below mentioned items.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to take us all the way down to 9.1R. Any questions? Mrs. Turner?
Just two things. First, can we just, for the public's knowledge, clarify, because I have this question. We had a world language teacher at the middle school resign who is both Spanish and French. And I'm hearing from others, they assume because we're posting a Spanish position, one of two things, that it's a different teacher who resigned or that we're doing away with French. So can we please clarify that?
We're not doing away with French.
No, so the teacher who has resigned, Mrs. Y, is moving on to a different opportunity, a different district, so we're sad to see her go. She is a unique teacher. She is dual certified in Spanish and French. When we looked at the needs across the district, it was just made more sense to look for a Spanish teacher. We actually have a teacher in our art department that is dual certified in French and has taught French before. So she's going to pick up some of those French classes at the middle school, as well as for art classes. We will not need to cut or get rid of any art classes out of high school, so we'll be able to continue that load in high school, and as well as make sure that we continue French in the middle school. Now, I will say, if there's anybody that is Spanish and French certified out there, we would love to see multiple language certifications. Please feel free to apply. It's getting harder and harder to find those individuals, though.
And then I just want to make sure I'm understanding in the PSEA MOA regarding the HSA deposit date, on page 1, where we have a number 1 and a number 2. Am I reading it correctly that the number 1 is the way that it has been and number 2 is what we're changing? Am I correct so far?
Just for clarification, you're looking at 9.1Q.
Yes.
Administrators are figuring it
I
out.
was just looking to see which one was it. So the way we're going to be doing it is the first pay of July.
So,
Yes, so one agreement said July 1st, that we would pay it out on July 1st. The other agreement said we would pay it out on the first pay in July.
I just wanted to make sure, it wasn't even actually about the dates. The language that I'm seeing that's different in number 1 and number 2 refers to the amount that the deductible is for the plan. And in the first one, it lays out what the deductible it is. And the second, it says the deductible for the plan shall be the IRS minimum deductible rate set, which could change.
Correct. We changed it to less specified because every year the IRS does change the minimal deductible. And so it's outdated as soon as we write it, so we changed it to that
I just wanted to
language.
make sure that our association
Okay,
was
yes.
aware of that.
Yes.
Because when I looked it up, I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna change probably every year.
It has changed every
Yeah.
year, so we changed it so that it would adhere to whatever the deductible is.
Yeah, no, that way makes much more sense, just to make sure.
Anything else? Mrs. Fryrick?
I have a question on the sharing of the teacher between the high school and the middle school. How do we make sure that students who want to meet with this teacher, that they're available? Do you know what I'm saying? If you're starting at the middle school, what happens if the kids in the afternoon and the kids can't stay late in the afternoon because they get a bus, what happens? I don't want to get down in the weeds, but it just, I always find it kind of curious.
So there's a couple ways to do that. Dr. Sned and Dr. Ellis organized that, to your point. They start in their day or end in their day, which opens up a period of either homeroom at the middle school or a kind of end of day period at the high school. That's one option. The other option is we still run an activity bus on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that's available for students to transfer between both. So that's always an available option there. I'll also say the teachers are always accommodating to meet with the students, either pre-planned, pre-scheduled ahead of time, on a variety of different ways to meet with students.
I'm always concerned about the student who, has to run the bus anyway to get home, and, are they gonna run out of time? Maybe they just thought of something at lunch, or the teacher's going to the building already, and you're making those kind of connections. I think we ought to make it very clear to these students that, use every means, or specifically each teacher has, a specific way that they can touch.
Correct, and as you know, the history that those are programs that's happened quite a bit. You know, Mademoiselle Stark was doing that transfer for many years, so I would say that to look to the World Language Department, they're probably the best experts on how to navigate those communications with the students, but
Get that.
point
I
taken,
just wanna make
absolutely,
sure
yep.
that, you know, make that clear to the students, that's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we have done, had a motion and a second, 9.1A through 9.1R. We've had discussion. Are there votes to the contrary? Hearing none, they can be considered unanimous. Thank you. Dr. Lorfick, I believe you would like to recognize some personnel guests.
I was going to, I don't think I have anybody here this evening. It is a busy week. I know several of the employees that were just approved had reached out to me and said they were unable to make it this evening. It is a very busy week. One of them is currently living in Florida, will be moving up here, so we knew she wasn't going to make it. But I know they're very all excited to just get started. They've already started their or this group will start their onboarding tomorrow. The group we hired at the last meeting, they're already done, a lot of them, so I'm anxious to get on board.
At any rate, we welcome them and we're happy to have them on board, and thank you for facilitating that for us. Okay, we have some additional action items at 10.0. The administration recommends board approval of the resolution authorizing the maximum project cost and maximum building cost total for the York Suburban Intermediate School project pursuant to section 7701.1 of the PA School Code as presented in the Act 34 project booklet for the project in accordance with the maximum project cost and maximum building cost in such resolution. Looking for a motion be made to approve this resolution as presented in the Act 34 project booklet. Is that it? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? No discussion. Are there votes to the contrary? Dr. Sullivan is a vote to the contrary. Anyone else? Okay, then that would be my higher math skills. Say 7 yeas and 1 nay. Okay, thank you. 10.2, administration recommends board approval to authorize Saxton and Stump, the district's solicitor, to file a notice of intervention in the agency appeal filed by 2 residents against Springdensbury Township Board of Supervisors with regard to the township and school district's agreement regarding parking spaces for the York Suburban Intermediate School project. The appeal was filed on May 21, 2025, docket number 2025-SU-001885 with the York County Court of Common Pleas. Again, looking for a motion be made to approve Saxon and Stump to file a notice of intervention in the agency appeal filed by 2 residents against the Springdensbury Township Board of Supervisors. Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? This, just for the sake of transparency, was the topic of our legal discussion at our executive session this evening. Any discussion? Any votes to the contrary? Seeing none, this can be considered unanimous. 10.3, the administration recommends board approval to appoint Dr. Rebecca Lorfick as assistant superintendent for a 5-year term beginning July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2030 at a starting salary of $178,000 and approve the corresponding contract for Dr. Lorfick's employment and appointment. Again, looking for a motion to be made. We have a motion and a second for the 5-year term, July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2030. Is there a discussion? Are there any votes to the contrary? Hearing none, this can be considered unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Morphy.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you even longer.
Right back at you. 10.4, the administration recommends board approval of the 2025-2026 York Suburban Tax Resolution, authorizing annual tax levy, real estate tax rate at 27.4488 mils, which is a 3.25% increase. Again, looking for a motion and a second.
Go ahead.
Have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, are there votes to the contrary? Hearing none, this can be considered unanimous. Thank you for that. 10.5, administration recommends board approval of the 25-26 Homestead Farmstead Resolution, authorizing the distribution of $1,164,421.73 of state gaming funds to 5,117 eligible homestead properties and 1 farmstead property under Section 342 of Act 1. Again, looking for a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, are there votes to the contrary? Again, hearing none, that can be considered unanimous. Mrs. Kindig, am I going too fast? The administration, 10.6, the administration recommends board approval of the 25-26 general fund final budget. Need a motion and a second? Have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Any votes to the contrary? Oh, backing up, have a question? Dr. Hessen?
So we put money aside for the pool project, but now the pool's not gonna be in operation. So where is that money going?
Currently, that's still in an assigned fund. Okay. One of the discussions was depending on where we go to swim in the future, using some of that to help pay for those additional costs.
Okay, good question. Any others? Okay, so we have a motion and a second on approving the general fund final budget. Any further discussion? Any votes to the contrary? Hearing none, this can be considered unanimous. All right. Moving on to 11.0, informational items. Mrs. Fryrick, have you an LIU report?
No, I have nothing to report from the LIU at this meeting. York Adams Academy is getting ready for one of the largest graduations they've ever had this coming Thursday evening at 7 o'clock at the York Learning Center. We were all invited. We at this point have over 80 students who are going to be walking with us that will jam-pack the stage.
Say that again, a little bit closer to the microphone.
We have over 80 students who will be participators. We'll make it jam-packed up there on that stage and jam-packed in the auditorium. We are going to graduate probably over 100 students for this spring term. And if you look at our numbers, you can understand why Suburban has 12 to 15 seats. We only have 5 students left because they have worked very, very hard to remind these students that the more concentrated you are, the better you think. And you don't have to be here as long. You work at your own pace. And they're very excited about that. So you're all welcome to come on Thursday evening. And that concludes my report.
Thanks very much for that. Mr. Robinson, legislative update.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, those of you who were at our last board meeting will remember 2 representatives from Suburban were poised to attend Advocacy Day in Harrisburg the following morning. Dawn broke over the parking lot here, and those 2 representatives presented themselves. So let me defer to my colleague, Mrs. Ashley Turner, for her take on Advocacy Day. Mrs. Turner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this year's Advocacy Day was well attended on our end, maybe not so much in the meetings that we had. PSBA, for anyone who's not aware, schedules meetings with every elected official that is assigned to a district. And last year, we met with everybody. This year, Representative Wendy Fink had a meeting scheduled with us, but was unable to attend. She was in a voting session. Not sure why, but State Senator Kristen Phillips-Hill didn't have an appointment for us, but we stopped by anyway to deliver some papers. And she was kind enough to come out, say hi. So we just had a quick interaction with her. And we did have a meeting with Representative Kara Hill Evans. Had great discussions around cyber charter funding, and if there's any reform on the way, I can't say we left there confident that it's coming anytime soon, but definitely a great conversation to be had with Representative Hill Evans. So that pretty much sums up the day. It was a busy day, packed, lots of field trips. We got to see lots of kids running around the Capitol, which is great, and a very rainy day. It was semi-productive.
If I may add to Mrs. Turner's observations, yes, Representative Fink was at a voting meeting. Representative Dorsey was otherwise occupied. State Senator Kristen Phillips-Hill did come out to greet us. And that gave us the opportunity for us to thank her for her past support of education in our fair Commonwealth, and to urge her to continue to urge support for education in the current budget cycle. I'm sure she heard our message, but we will have to wait to see how she responds. And as Mrs. Turner said, we had frank and serious discussions with Representative Hill Evans, and were able to suggest the idea that cyber charter funding is an unfunded state mandate. And I'm happy to say this idea resonated well with Representative Hill Evans, and I would like to think it gives her some encouragement and heart as we go forward in the budget cycle and try to further cyber charter reform. Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Turner, this was an idea that was brand new. The expression of glee and joy on her face when she listened to this concept was one to behold and certainly warmed my heart. In other news, PSBA will be adding infrastructure funding to its litany of issues with which to communicate with our state representatives. Because as most of us know, PlanCon 2.0, I think, is on the books. It's been touted as beautifully written and conceived, except for one minor technicality. There's no money for it. It's more than a crummy technicality when you consider this legislation. So anything those of you in the audience and those of you listening at home might want to do to contact your local representatives to urge funding for infrastructure and PlanCon would be greatly appreciated. If there are no other questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. York Adams Tax Bureau, Mrs. Kindig.
Just a brief report from the April 28th meeting. They reported that they have collected almost a quarter of their revenues for the first quarter, so that's good. They're at 24.2% of what they budgeted. And then their expenses come in at 19.4% of budget. And then the other item of notable reporting is that they discussed that the notices of delinquency and the collection delinquent tax fees, they're going to increase those. Most of their fees that they assess to people are going to go up by about $5. That concludes my report.
Thank you. As far as the York County School of Technology report, we have a meeting this Thursday, but I can report that their graduation was held the same night as ours here at York Suburban, and 14 York Suburban graduates crossed the stage as York County School of Technology graduates. So we wish them well. I'll have more to share, I'm sure, about that following this month's meeting that I'll share in June. As always, we thank everyone for attending, our visitors. We appreciate your being here. This leads us to our second opportunity for public comment. This public comment period is an opportunity to be heard by the board on agenda items or other items which may reasonably come before the board. Comments are to be directed to the entire board, not one individual board member, administrator, staff member, or to the audience. Comments will be timed and limited to 3 minutes or less. Please note, board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting. When you hear your name called, please come forward. You do not need to state your name or address before sharing your remarks. Sarah Reinecker, Spring Garden Township. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to comment on Dr. Krause's report on graduation, please. Of all the graduation that had art on them, one particularly stood out to me that speaks volumes to how a suburban education impacts children's lives. It read, "If you knew my story, you'd be proud." That hat art caused me to reflect on my time as one of the 3 adult founders of the York Suburban Education Foundation's Student-Led Impact Foundation Committee. Together with Josh Carney, a local engineer, and Dr. Denise Furman, who was the high school assistant principal at the time, we concepted a vision with our community that students could be part of addressing growing needs in the district. This past Saturday, I was asked to attend the Impact Foundation's new student orientation at Lutheran Memorial Church. There are 50 students committing to be involved for the 25-26 school year, and I saw a lot of diversity in their faces, kids of all backgrounds and languages represented. It reminded me, which I shared with these students, from whence do we've come. The first president of IF, this is very personal for me, disclosed on a promotional video we made to share far and wide that she herself was food insecure. And all year, as I worked with Jamie Myers during the 2018-19 school year, I had no idea. The guts, sheer guts, it took her to tell her story was shown on this year's graduate hat art. Jamie worked her way through college, all on her own, and she's graduated and gainfully employed. We still keep in touch. As a community, we must constantly remember what matters and why we are here. What is it we are asking this community to support and embrace? Educating children goes way beyond a reasonable tax increase or contemplation of needed improvement infrastructure plans. We are here to help them find a pathway, to blaze a future, to expand their stories beyond this high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Ruth, Spring Garden Township. Mr. Ruth is passing. Kathy Schaefer, Spring Garden Township. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. As mentioned recently, the original purpose of the student board representative was to provide a student voice in board discussions, and at that point in time, student activity reports were provided by the board communications chair. Helping at the polls last week, I happened to see the parents of one of the first school board representatives, student school board representatives. They relayed how much their daughter relished being a part of discussions, and I recalled how she truly embraced the opportunity. She's now a professor at Villanova. Although it's too late in the game this year, might this active participation in democracy be worthy conversation for next year? Some more in democracy. While Pennsylvania does not formally recognize Election Day as a state holiday, unlike its neighboring states, New Jersey, Maryland, New York, and Delaware, some Pennsylvania school districts, such as those in Delaware County, do close schools and use them as polling locations. This serves several meaningful purposes. It dedicates the day to civic and community engagement, instilling the importance of active participation. It opens school facilities to our community members, offering a firsthand look of where their tax dollars are invested. It creates an educational opportunity, allowing teachers to promote the significance of democratic participation and the responsibilities of citizenship. I applaud the administration and school board for approving the middle school as a polling location this past year. Might you consider expanding this initiative next year and encouraging other county public school districts to follow suit? Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our second opportunity for public comment. That leads us to 4.0, board comments or recognitions. Anything from my fellow board members? Okay, hearing none, we can stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.